Okay, so you're ready to start your still life drawing. You can see my still life is here set up in front of me in the center of the table. I need to keep it in about the same place every day. And then I have my paper here, and I took a photo of my still life in about the same angle that I'm looking on it. I'm going to go ahead and adjust this and get started on drawing. So you can draw directly from your still life or from a photo on your phone. I'm going to go ahead and be referencing both back and forth in here, but you're going to see me mostly using the image on my phone. It's easier to draw from a photo because the photo flattens it for you already. If you end up changing your position when you're drawing from life, you're going to see it differently. I am starting with the object that is closest to me, which is the little paper ribbon right up front. Kind of getting the angles of it, and I'm drawing very lightly and filling it in. It goes about to the center of my page, so that's what I should aim for. And my first sketch in, I actually make it too big and I have to go back and erase it. So it's okay to do that. It's gonna happen. I'm referencing my photo, seeing where the object falls, comparing to the other part of my ribbon, making some adjustments, just working slowly and lightly to get a basic shape on. Remember, we are drawing larger than our actual still life. And if you're starting, these papers are in the brown basket under the TV for you to go ahead and grab them and start. Right here is when I realized that I'm drawing my ribbon a little bit too big, that I'm going to have to go back in and adjust. I realized that the angle of this was wrong and it was pushing it too far to the right. So I'm just going in, adjusting my ribbon, making sure it matches the one that I have on my phone. And it's no worries, I can go ahead and just erase. The reason that I realized that my ribbon was wrong, in the incorrect placement is I had passed the halfway mark on my page, which you can see I marked below, but the ribbon didn't pass the halfway mark marked on the still life. That's why we drew those center lines before we started on the paper that our still life was on. After I sketch in my ribbon, I'm going in and I'm adding my center lines. This is going to help me place my other objects in relation to that ribbon. By adding my center lines in relationship to the ribbon, I know where I can place everything else on my paper. I can also draw in the outline of the edges of my paper. Just helps me get a guideline for what I'm drawing and where I'm going to be placing it. After I can do this, I can either start drawing in my other objects or begin by shading in that very first shape in the front. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the process of drawing in the other objects and get to shading our first object so that you guys can see that. Okay, so now I'm ready to start shading this paper ribbon. Going in, defining that edge there, I start by sketching out the shadow that I can see there, the cast shadow. And I'm going to be working with a 4B pencil for the majority of the areas and a 6B for the darkest dark. So it's going to be my core shadow and my cast shadow being in the 6B. So you should be working with a 4B for the majority and then going in and darkening up with that 6B. Make your process a whole lot smoother and it'll prevent you from going too dark from the beginning. You can see I'm just slowly varying in some hatching lines to create my core shadow from that little curl part coming out from underneath the page and then bringing it up, lightening the pressure, erasing any marks that go outside, trying to add in the highlighted edge of a ribbon that we practiced on our worksheet, and also changing the shape as I work on it. If I'm starting to smudge a ton, you'll eventually see me put a index card underneath my hand. You can go ahead and do that. I can see that there's a shadow being cast from the ribbon above here, so I'm going to go ahead and shade that area in. And that's going to be separate from my shading of the ribbon as well, so I'll layer my ribbon shading on top of that. I'm working with one object at a time, just shading it as closely as I can, considering the shadow and the cast shadow, looking at my photo, looking at my still life, adjusting any lines and shapes that I find that I need to adjust as I'm working on it, working lightly and slowly building up the layers. I can do hatching, cross-hatching, or those circular motions, but I'm making sure I'm filling in the color evenly and correctly for each value. I can work on one item and get it as close to finished as possible, but as I start building up the other items in my still life, I'm going to notice that I need to darken some areas or lighten some areas in relationship to each other. And I can always go back and adjust that and add that in and make any adjustments needed. So what we have is not permanent. We have erasers for a reason. We're all going to make mistakes. That is totally okay. So just try your best, take your time. You can use your pencil and lay it against your phone photo to get some angles correct. See where we have a straight line, see where we have a diagonal, see how diagonal it is, and then transfer that information onto your paper. As we shade the ribbon and we add in the cast shadow, we should watch this ribbon become three-dimensional. It shouldn't just be flat on the page anymore. It should start popping out of the page. You can see me start adding some cast shadows here a little bit, just defining the basic shape of them, seeing where they go compared to the ribbon itself. Adding in that darkest dark, where the color is as dark as possible. The shadow is very defined at this edge before it starts diffusing. Diffusing is blending out from a very dark color to almost the color of the page. Okay, so when we have a shadow, it diffuses. The edges just kind of disappear softly. It's not a harsh line. Another example of the word diffuse would be sorry about that. Another example of the word diffuse would be when you spray perfume and it diffuses into the air. It's very strong at first and eventually it spreads out and disperses. I was starting to smudge my graphite. I was noticing it was picking up on my hand and moving around the paper, so I got this index card to put my hand on to also protect the drawing, prevent me from getting any more graphite on it. You can do the same. You can get a piece of paper from your sketchbook, or you can borrow an index card from up front, whatever works. Okay, now that I've shaded the majority of this ribbon, I'm going back in, finishing up my cast shadows, gonna add in from diffuse from that darkest dark to fading out, darken up any areas that I think need to be darkened. I'm going back and forth between my 4B and my 6B pencil here to get the variations in value that I need. I'm going to go ahead and also finish up that curl on the back where it's all white, that little square, and add in the dimension there. I'm going to start shading the next ribbon on here as well. And I'm going to speed that up for you guys and you can get started. I'm going to record myself shading the box and the crane as well. I'm going to do it very fast, just talk over it a little bit, but I'll upload that for you guys as well if you just want to start with your ribbon. But you don't have to. After seeing this video, you can start with any of the objects. You're just going to take it slow, or hatching and cross-hatching, or the little circles, which is called scumbling, making sure we're adding in our cast shadows, our core shadows, our highlights, and our midtones. Have a lot of practice with shading. You can ask any questions you need, ask for any advice from me or Mrs. Rolone. The goal is to make our objects look three-dimensional and look like they're coming out of the page, which we can see happening slowly with this ribbon right here. Okay, so this was a long video. You got to watch me shade some. I still need to go back in, finish this. I'm not done. As I work on each object, I'm going to notice that another one needs to be edited and adjusted, and that's okay. You're going to notice the same thing. You can see me adjusting the box and the shadow of it here as I'm working on this ribbon and realizing I need to make that little box lid larger. So it's going to happen like that. Just take your time, work at it slowly, switch back and forth between the 4B and 6B pencil, making sure to use the 4B for the majority of your shading and the 6B to really use it for the core shadow and cast shadow. Primarily that cast shadow. The darkest dark is going to be the part that touches the object. Pay attention to any reflected light that you may have. There's a little bit of it on both of my ribbons that I added in. So look for any reflected light, take it slow, work carefully, and slowly build your layers. You guys got this. If you have any questions, ask me when we're back in class.